Okay, the subject of this one, this segment is the back cut with saber and its use and where it came from. And I'm delighted to talk about this. It's a really fascinating subject. The first thing you want to understand is that when the saber became truly modern, and the modernization of the saber started at the turn of the century, around 1906, when Italo Santelli moved to Hungary. The Hungarians imported him there to modernize their approach to saber fencing. As you know, the Hungarian traditional weapon is the saber, and they felt, in the view of what was happening in world competition in sports saber, that maybe they should update what they're doing. Italo Santelli moved to Budapest, and he teamed up with a man named Barsotti, and the two of them are the ones who invented the back cut, as you're asking for it, which the back cut is within the same context of other innovations that led to what we call modern saber fencing. But we're going to restrict ourselves right now to the back cut itself. If you've seen my videotapes on saber, you've seen a pretty good example of how the saber is used as a cutting weapon, including the back cuts. But I'm very delighted to be able to elaborate a little bit beyond that to answer the question that was posed to me. In the first place, the back cut is only used on chest cuts or belly cuts, and for this reason. Before the back cut, all cuts were made with the front edge of the saber. And even though the first third of the back edge of the saber is theoretically sharp, like a real cavalry saber, it was seldom used really for anything. Santelli realized that the back edge was really important if it were incorporated technically into the methodology of using the saber. The front edge cut works extremely well for the head cut or for flank cut, but does not work so well for chest cut or belly cuts. And for this reason, I can cut you on the head with the saber, bang, and my hand and my arm is still relatively covered. Or I can cut you on the flank, boom, and again I have good covering here for my arm, and my hand leaves the saber in a position where I can easily use it defensively right out of that in case I fail to get there. So the front edge cut is for the head and for the flank, because you can recover from that cut into a defensive position in case your opponent parries. The flank cut, the same thing. In case your opponent parries, you can recover from that position quite easily for defensive mode. But if you try to cut the chest with the front edge, what happens, if you watch here, I cut the chest, and all of a sudden, if I miss that, I'm totally vulnerable to a counteraction. The same is for the belly cut. If I belly cut with the front edge of the blade and miss for some reason, then I'm completely at the mercy of my opponent's counteraction. So Santelli devised a means of making these two cuts which still leave you covered, and that's where the back cut comes in. So instead of cutting with the front edge, which we call a drawn cut, you're drawing the cut across the chest, or you're drawing the cut across the belly, instead of doing that, the back cut, I'm trying to figure out how to explain this. This is difficult. If you watch my hand carefully, the back cut comes out, and we're going to do a chest cut now. As I reach for the chest, just as I get there, it looks like I'm going to cut with the front edge. I turn my hand, and the back edge of the blade sweeps the cutting line. So that looks like this. It's very quick. And somebody watching this might well think that it was the front edge cut, but the fact is, that's the back edge cut. I do this in slow motion. It comes out, and the hand turns, and the back edge is doing the action here, see. And again, the advantage here is that if I miss, I'm covered for defensive recovery, you see. The belly cut is the same thing. I reach out for the belly and or lower torso with the front edge, and then right at the critical moment, I just whip the blade, I just turn the blade, turn the saber over, and the back edge sweeps the target area, you see? And again. Now, in order to do these cuts, you have to hold the saber correctly. And you don't hold the saber. Can you see this? Can you come in on this? You definitely don't hold the saber in the palm of your hand in this fashion. Because you can't do what I'm talking about, like with back edge cuts and other kinds of recoveries in saber if you're holding the saber in your fist. So Santelli devised the idea that you hold the saber in your fingers. The thumb is the controlling element here. The saber literally rocks on the thumb, and the fingers here control the motion of the saber. So here you have it. This is how you cut with the saber. You don't cut with the saber like this. Beginners who pick up a saber and play swing the saber. They pick it up like this, and then they swing the saber like this. And if they go to a fencing teacher to learn how to really use a saber, the first thing the fencing teacher does is make them stop this motion. This motion from the elbow forward completely leaves you vulnerable to just about any counteraction that somebody might want to make. And if you're a saber fencer who uses the saber from his fist and cutting from the elbow forward, you're not going to go very far, because as soon as you move forward to make a cut, you're going to be hit with a counterattack. But if I hold the saber in my fingertips, and then the cutting action, rather than coming from back here, comes from the hand. You see, the hand and the wrist, keeping the vulnerable part of the arm covered at all times. So, if I'm going to just demonstrate a head cut, or pardon me, a chest cut using back cut, and you notice I don't swing the saber. I'll do that again. This is a chest cut. I don't swing the saber. If I use the saber from the elbow forward and make that same cut, that's what happens. Then I open up everything. So if I miss, I'm vulnerable to a counterattack. The same is true for the belly. Or lower torso. I'll make a back edge cut for lower torso now. There. You see the arm doesn't swing. La. La. So at the very end of the extension, the wrist turns, the back edge goes across and makes the cut. If you get the momentum, it's just marvelous. Now here's the other thing about the back edge cut. It leaves you in a position, as do the other cuts, where you can cut again without withdrawing. Let's say I make a chest cut and I miss, but look where I am. I'm ready through fingertip action to do more cuts. So I can make that chest cut. Hey, if I miss, hey. So, hey, hey. How about 3 cuts? Hey, hey, hey. You see? So as long as I'm using the saber, can you come back in here? With the fingers and the wrist, I can make multiple cuts without swinging my arm, you see. That's a tremendous advantage as a saber fencer. In saber fencing, there is such a thing as the stop cut. The stop cut is there to be used against anybody who comes forward on an offensive move, exposing the arm, which is most fencers. Most fencers, when they attack, come forward and in some fashion will expose the arm. And the stop cut is made to take advantage of that brief moment when that exposure takes place. And the stop cuts can go to the inner arm, the underarm, and the outer arm. And we should do a whole DVD just on stop cuts. Maybe we will do that one of these days. If we have time on this session, we will. And any saber fencer that approaches the game without a consideration, I should say a defensive consideration against stop cuts, is not going to go very far. The The philosophy of the saber fencer is, if I can get them with a stop cut, I'm not going to waste my energy trying to attack them. I'll get them to attack me, and when they come forward, bang, I nail them with a nice stop cut. So, back to the back edge cut. The back edge cut allows you, I'm repeating myself now, but this is very important. It allows you to make that chest cut or that belly cut without making oneself vulnerable to stop cuts, you see. This is the heart and core of modern saber fencing. And if you study saber, this is the kind of thing you have to study. In my study of saber when I was a young man, I would stand in front of a fencing dummy, our practice dummy. It was a torso and a mask that I could practice cuts on, you see. We call that practice dummy the phantom. You're fencing the phantom fencer, you see. But I would stand there, I'd practice, say, 50 direct cuts to the head. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just getting that finger action strengthened and getting it into my neurology. Then I'd practice 50 cuts to the flank. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, without swinging the arm. Developing that technique of the non-swing, you see. It's from the fingers instead. I think that about covers it, and if you have any questions, just rerun this. I think you'll pick up on what it is you don't quite comprehend